The destruction of the environment is not a problem that affects only our country. It is a problem that affects everyone internationally. The difference is the way in which each nation takes measures to reduce the damages caused in the respective places. In Chile, according to the National Environmental Commission, 16.9 million tons of garbage are generated annually, a figure that is increasing with the years and of which only 10% of the residues can be collected. Much of this contamination causes severe health risks and worsens people's quality of life. According to the National System of Environmental Information, also known as CINEA, the two main sources of pollution in Chile are the air, with 33% of pollution, which occupies the highest figure in Latin America, and the excess of garbage with 19%, that mainly affects large urban areas. According to a study conducted by the Ministry of Environment in 2016, the majority of the pollutants in the country are the industries, with 42%, followed by transportation with 30% and the use of firewood with 15%. Regarding transportation, only 7% of the population at the national level moves on foot or bicycle, while the remaining 93% uses public transportation such as taxis and buses. The reason for the large percentage of people depending on a public transportation is that there isn't an effective clean means of transportation at the national level, and the cities haven't got the infrastructure for individual transport, such as paths for bicycles. The subway or metro works so far in only 3 large cities of the country. However, the rest of Chile is still depending on the transport that work from petroleum or non-renewable energies. In Chile, laws have been created that contemplate the creation of action plans for areas that are vulnerable to environmental emergencies. Such plans include the regulation of contaminants, restriction in the use of certain wood-burning heaters, driving restriction, among others. In 2016, 14 atmospheric decontamination plans were generated in the span of 6 months. This does not seem to be enough, and the contamination continues, mainly that of fine particulate matter in the air, which despite the programs of the different governments over the years, it has not stopped. Some voluntary institutions work in implementing some recycling system in various cities like Valparaíso, but unfortunately, they do not have the necessary funds to have an effective plan. Also, the lack of cultural education in people make it difficult to have any sort of advancement in the field.
What's your name?
My name is Alexia Clark.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto, Canada.
When did you come to Chile?
I came to Chile in February of 2015, so about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years.
What do you think about Valparaíso?
I love Valparaíso. It's got a beautiful, so much culture, so much character, so much history. It's beautiful.
What are the cultural practices to take care of the environment in your country?
In Canada, taking care of the environment is a big concern, a very big concern. People are very interested in doing so. There's lots of practices. One thing that's very different from here in Chile and in Canada is that in Canada we never litter. We never throw garbage on the ground. If you do so, you will get a fine. You have to pay, and a lot. But more than that, you don't do it because if you did it, people would immediately yell at you, right? If you threw something on the ground, any person around you would say, pick that up right away. There's a lot more respect for keeping the streets and the parks and everything clean.
Is there skill education regarding environmental care?
Lots and lots of education for environmental care, absolutely. Lots of how to recycle, for sure. Lots of information about not throwing away garbage, about disposing of garbage. I remember in school that there were, when I was young, that there was some actors that would travel from school to school and do plays and shows about the importance of protecting the environment, and they would always have like puppets and songs, and they'd make them as entertaining as possible for the kids. So
Is there a recycling culture? What type?
I think almost everything is recycled in Canada. I mean, we recycle paper, we recycle plastics, we recycle cans, we recycle about almost everything that we possibly can, we try to recycle. Since I've come to Chile, I have to sometimes put cans or bottles in the garbage, and it breaks my heart to do it because I'm not used to it. My whole life I've always recycled those things.
What is the method to clean the street?
We have street cleaners, people who do go around and clean the streets. But like I said, generally they're not dirty because people don't throw garbage. It's just part of the culture. You don't throw garbage in the streets.
The landfills have the necessary care for the protection of people?
Landfills are a very controversial topic in Canada. It depends on the politicians in power. Sometimes we actually even buy garbage. Sometimes we even sell space in our landfills to other cities. Or sometimes we buy space in other cities to bring our garbage. I don't think we have enough room in some of our cities for the landfills. So we have to transport the garbage long distances, which is terrible. And yeah, landfills are very controversial. They're a big problem.
Wait, what kind of sanction do those that pollute the environment receive?
Well, I mean, it depends. Like everything, if it's an individual person, the sanctions are very strict. Like I said, you throw garbage on the ground, you could get a huge fine. But if it's a big corporation, spilling oil into the oceans, that's no problem, right? It's as the world today works, the corporations sometimes have a free pass, which is very unfortunate. There are sometimes that they do get penalties, financial penalties, but in my mind, the penalties should be stricter. I think that they should be shut down if they have big oil spills or environmental problems.
Are there protected green areas or parks?
Yes, lots and lots. There's lots of national parks, lots of provincial parks, lots of reserves, lots of areas where where lots of forests and lakes that are protected.
Do people often use clean means of transport?
In cities, yes. In big cities, for sure. When I'm in Toronto, I go everywhere by bike. And the transportation system there is pretty good. So the buses and the streetcars and the subways, most people use them. In the suburbs or in the small towns, unfortunately, almost everybody uses cars because everything is so spread out, right? It's very far from house to house, from business to business, so people travel by car a lot.
Is there air contamination in the cities? How do they solve it?
Yeah, in the big cities for sure, we call it smog, which is like smoke plus fog. It can be a big problem, especially in the really hot days of summer, which we don't have many in Canada, but sometimes we do. And to solve it, they don't do enough, I don't think. They try to encourage people to bicycle. They may have made a lot of bike lanes in Toronto, which are really good for people who want to bike. And they tell people to reduce the amount of energy that they use in their houses, but they don't really give enough incentives. It's more just like, you should do this. There's no reason why the people have to.
Is the use of reusable products promoted?
Reusable products, sometimes, like for example, shopping bags, for sure. That's a big these days. I think though not enough, not nearly enough. When I go to the supermarkets or stores in Canada, I'm always very shocked by the packaging, how much packaging is on each product. And the culture in Canada is very like, if it's broken, throw it away. Don't try to fix it. So I think it's a big problem in that sense. Reusing is our one area we need to improve.
As we can see, Chile is still far from what developed countries like Canada have achieved in recycle and environmental care. Using the Law 20,285 on access to public information, usually called the Transparency Act, the municipality of Valparaíso was asked about the expenditures and funds invested in the city in terms of recycle, and the response was categorical. The city had no records of expenses and alliances with third parties that to treat the waste of the city during the period that Jorge Castro was mayor, a time equivalent to 8 years and which ended in December 2016. In countries such as Canada or the United States, where each community has its own legislation, and there are federal legislation as well, it is common for each city to have a specific and well-developed regulatory plan for waste and recycle. In Canada, also the culture of the people is relevant, something that in our country still is not understood. In Toronto, people are aware of the methods and importance of recycling. They also take care of the cleaning the streets of the city themselves, something that in Valparaíso evidently does not happen, and that it also escaped the responsibility of the municipal government. The Ministry of the Environment was created in 2010, so while there is progress in environmental matters, it is still minimal. Despite recent education plans on the subject, most children don't know how to take care of the planet. According to the Ministry on data released in 2017, only 4% of the children recycle, while 26.9% of people say that they do not do it because they don't know where there are clean points in their city. Chile needs policies that educate people in the care and maintenance of their city from a young age, regardless of the tool that each city uses to clean it. Raising awareness in people is the first step toward achieving cities and, eventually, a clean country.